third line from the bottom, just above the bond interest, computer storage, firewall, and switches. And it's a reduced amount from $80,000 we were showing in the previous budget to $70,000. We got more exact estimates, perhaps not the final estimates, but pretty exact estimates about what that cost would be for those items. And it's been separated out of the computer department because it really is a capital item. So it's showing on that page now.
It's replacing 5-year-old storage.
That's right.
Is the major part of it, which should lead to, you said, a 10-fold increase in response time? Or
Yes, it'll do that. It'll be a lot more
and reliability.
a lot more reliable, faster. It's a system that's aging, that's going to be breaking down, and has been starting to break down already. And then it also includes a replacement firewall and I think a pair of switches, which are their devices that tie our network together. So that's been put into the capital page now, where I think it's more appropriate. It's a more appropriate place to put that.
So, Paul, what if you could have just, in a nutshell, all the presentation of those two is during the financial committee meetings with you, you managed, if it's my understanding correctly, you and the financial committee managed to find $110,000 worth of savings or cuts, reduce the budget by that much, of which $100,000 of that $110,000 is going to go into operating reserve, and the other $10,000 is going to be sitting for the contingency if we need to pay moving costs for a new director.
What we accomplished at our Monday meeting was our cuts were about $66,000. We had a surplus going into that from our last budget of about $57,000.
Okay.
So those two totals gave us enough money to put $10,000 toward an executive director moving expenses and transfer $100,000 into our operating reserve and leave us about $13,500 still as a surplus in this budget.
Thank you.
Does that conclude your report?
That's it for me. Unless
Any further questions on this agenda item? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item for public input and comments, and we will take comments from the public. You'll have 3 minutes. We may or may not answer the questions. And if somebody makes a statement that you agree with, please say, I agree, without going into a laborious conversation. And also, please identify yourself for the record.
Hi, Shelley Bernke, Freeland. One thing I wanted to understand is that if we sell the Kabuta and the gazebo, those were expenses that were paid for out of the State of Good Repair Fund. And it's my understanding that if we were to sell things that we purchased through the State of Good Repair Fund, we would have to then return the money to the federal government. If you read the State of Good, the master agreement, that, and if you read the actual agreement that we signed, I believe.
A good question. I think there's a good answer for that. Paul, I think you have the answer for that.
Yeah, we've already paid back the monies for those items.
The Kabuta?
Mm-hmm.
And, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so any money that we get from the sale of that is ours to.
It's our money to be used at the board's discretion for probably equipment.
Because we have reimbursed the Department of
Yeah.
Transportation. Okay, I have some questions on the budget from what I'm seeing.
You're still on your 3 minutes.
I know. I see a decline in money received in terms of federal grants and capital grants.
What page are you on?
I am on Island Transit 2015 budget actual report. It's online. I picked it up this morning.
Page 2.1.
I don't know if there's no paging on this. This is what I picked up off the web page. Federal grants, actual annual budget, $2,000. We haven't made that, so we got 0% income on that. And capital grants, we have over $1,219,000. Of that, we've only collected 1%. What's going on with that? Are we not applying for grants? Are we applying for grants and not getting them?
Oh, you're looking at the budget actual report, okay?
Yep.
Not the budget itself, not the 3.0 budget, but the budget actual report.
Paul, can you speak up? I can't hear you.
She's looking at a different report, not the budget itself, but the budget actual report. And you're looking at revenues. Our operating, and you're saying that we're not seeing any revenue for September for the state operating grants, is that the
Well,
question?
I'm saying for the entire year, if you look at the annual budget, you're seeing at September federal grant 0, January through September it's 0. Annual budget, we budgeted $2,000. We're still waiting to get that $2,000. We have received nothing. I don't know what our perspective is, future, what we're gonna see in the immediate future. Then you look down below that, capital grants, September actual 0, January through September 12,000.
Okay.
Okay,
The federal grant, the $2,000 amount and the $2,500 amount, those are very small grants that we get for like training and that sort of thing. And in the past, we've utilized them. I would imagine that the miscellaneous grants that we probably still will. That's has the acronym RTAP attached to it. The other $2,000 amount, I think they might have discontinued one of those programs, so we probably won't fulfill that. The capital grants, where we budgeted like 1.2 million, a number of those grants or purchases have been delayed. And for buses, we're planning on purchasing 13 buses in 2016.
and that will show in the prospectus for next year that we will not be making those expenses. Is that correct? We will not be making those purchases.
Those expenditures and the reimbursements for the grants are shown in the 2016 budget. So we're not realizing, even though it was budgeted in 2015, we're not realizing it because the state grant, what's the name of it? The state contract has been delayed at the Olympia at the state level, and therefore we can't purchase buses off that state contract until they finalize it, and therefore our purchases have been delayed. So there are various reasons why they've been delayed, but we're still going to take advantage of those grants. It's just been pushed into another year, and therefore
But we don't have them yet.
we don't have the buses yet. We haven't even ordered the buses yet because we're waiting on the state contract, which sets the prices for those buses.
Okay, I'm probably out of time.
You're out of time. We need
Okay, I
to
do have
share
other
with somebody
questions, I'll
else.
ask later.
Please identify yourself, sir.
Roy Daniel, I live in North Whitby. Back to the Kubota, a couple of comments on that. I understand that it doesn't have that many hours on it, a couple of years old. And one of the main discussion looks like was snow removal. And you're saying that it's better utilized, you can contract somebody else to get out here. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock or 3:30, when you're trying to get the buses on the road and get your commuters down to the ferry dock, all it would take is one time when you couldn't get those buses on the road on time. And you're going to wish that you didn't keep that Kubota. So and there's other things you could probably use it for. I can't sit here and tell you what else you can do with it. There's going to be things come up over the years that you can be utilizing it for. But it sure is a nice, good insurance policy to have around for those rare occasions where we have a large snowfall. And Diamond Reynolds not going to come out here at 3 o'clock in the morning to do that for you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to expand on that conversation at a workshop, and my 30-second response to that, as being in the construction business for 40-plus years, when we have a weather forecast that anticipates that we're going to have snow, we order the equipment to the site before the event happens, because we can't shut a site down if we have to keep it going. And I'm not going to get involved in a dialogue on this topic, but there can be some pre-planning for this, but we're going to expand on this, and I hope that you come back to the workshop when it is advertised and scheduled.
If I make one other comment, I understand that you're in the construction business, but for 24 years, I was the operations and facility supervisor for Highland Transit.
And you can expand on that.
I have been in that position
legitimate
where
comments.
early snowfalls.
Yeah, thanks. Next comment, anybody else for public comment before we go into executive session?
Yes, Kathleen Custer, I'm the ATU president. So looking at the 2016 budget summary, I've got two questions. The sick leave buyout, number 50214, why is the percent variance for 2016 so negative 73%? What is that?
Well, we were paying a large amount to our former executive director, and that will not continue in 2016. So there's a big difference between what we're going to pay next year and the previous year.
Gotcha. Okay. And then looking at the salaries and wages, am I to understand that the 5.31% reflects no cost of living increases for 2016?
Time out. We are going to discuss those topics in executive session and not here,
Closed session.
okay?
Okay, but you've got the budget at 5.31%, so I'm just wondering what is that? Does
You
that reflect any-
you can make your comments about what your thoughts are, but we're not going to respond to it.
Okay, so my comment is here, in your significant 2016 budget increases actuals, the comment that's added says, add 2.5 positions for Whitney and Camino contingency. So I assume that 2.5 positions equals the 5.31% increase.
And
Is that
there's no
correct?
response on that, but we'll take your comments.
Just that it's 2 positions instead of 2.5. We had an error there, it's just adding 2 positions.
Okay, but my question is the 2 positions, is that what
Please
equals
address
the-
your questions to the board, please.
Comments.
Okay, I don't care who
Or your
answers the
comment.
question, I'm directing it to the one who created the budget. So, my
Time out,
question is,
time out, time out.
the
The
two,
protocol here really is that the public addresses their comments to the board and to the chair,
okay,
and not individually, okay? And this is labor things, these are things that we want to be careful with for your benefit and for ours,
Right.
okay?
trust me, I understand you're very careful. So, my question is, the 2 positions, it says 2.5 positions, does that equal the 5.31% increase for 2016? That's my question, and I would like an answer to
And
that.
there's no answer to that right now.
At some point, I would like an answer to
I
that.
think you'll get that during negotiations.
Well, you've got it in your 2016 budget, that's a
The
part
3
of the
minutes
budget.
is up, we're moving on. Any other
I don't think
questions?
my 3 minutes is up yet. I do have another
The
comment.
3 minutes are up. I'm taking the next question, or comment.
I'm sorry, May, can you tell me how much time I've got left on my 3 minutes?
5 seconds.
Okay, $60,000. So I think I actually deserve a few more seconds
No,
because of the argument here.
we need to move this along, okay?
Of course you do.
Thanks.
Trust me, I'll get
Yeah.
my comments out to you.
On the significant budget increases, projected actuals, down the second line up from the bottom for the insurance deductibles.
You give me a page, Gail,
Just
Okay.
the,
It's a handout.
all right?
talks about $5,000 deductible per incident, no incidents in 2015. Does that mean that the accident, the Prius accident, that's not covered, or was that covered, the fixing of that, was that done by insurance, or now I guess looking in at the deductibles? But then we'll move on to page 13.1, third one from the, up from the bottom. Is that computer storage, firewall, and switches? That's a $70,000 waste right there with the 2 individuals still in charge. Especially with the firewall, there's no protection against those computers as it is. And I'd have to look at more of them. I haven't been able to go over this with the other ones. It looks like a lot of money was taken out of some things. And
Gail, specifically, what is your question or your comment?
That if we're going to approve $70,000 in the 2016 budget, that you are guaranteeing the proper use of public funds when it comes to that $70,000 for a new computer network, firewall, switches and stuff like that. Because so far, it's been a waste of money coming out of that department. And for the first one, it would be for the insurance.
Okay, I'm looking for a specific question.
So comment.
Or comment. But time out, you know. We have a public forum here regarding the budget. And we have invited the public to comment on the budget. And she has a legitimate question. Ms. Berkey, is that? She had questions, they were answered. They are not labor related. They are not executive session issues. She deserves an answer.
I need to point of order, I understand that, but she doesn't have to ask a question. She can just make a comment. So not every member of the public is going to pose a question. It sounds like Gail was just making a comment saying, make sure that you're spending your money correctly. We don't need to answer that, we just need to hear that.
Okay.
So
I heard a
force a
question.
question.
If there is a question, we'll answer your question regarding the budget. If you're making a comment, thank you very much, we'll move on. Which is it?
Move on.
Okay. All right, we're moving on.
Can we move other business up before executive session? Because I actually had a couple, I didn't realize it was
Well,
at the end.
we've already
Okay,
approved
I'll
the
do it when
agenda,
we
so
come back,
you
but
do it
no
when you
legal
come back.
You have a quorum.
So we need to reorganize that agenda. I should have paid more attention to get other business ahead of executive session.
Any further public comment? We're in the public comment period right now.
Can I get another one?
No, thank you. Hearing none, we're going to move on into executive session. There will be no decisions made.
No, there may possibly.
Oh, well, there will be decisions made after executive session. There will be no action taken in executive session. And how much time do we need for this? Half hour?
Start at 20, we can always extend, so.
That's right.
I think 20 minutes.
All right, now here's the situation with this executive session. The room that we generally adjourn to is being occupied by another activity, so we have to use this room for executive session. So we're going to have to ask everybody to leave, including the camera and recording devices, etc. And as soon as the room is cleared, and we'll take a 5-minute break. And
I got a question, I'm sorry. So are we having a half an hour for all the 2 executive sessions and the closed session? Or are we setting a time limit on each executive
I would say
session?
combine them, so.
All 3, so we're going into executive session and closed session in a half an hour.
I said 20, but half an hour, so.
so we'll come back here at 10 minutes till 11.
It's till 11 now.
Where do you want to come back? No, we're going to take a break. You want to take a break?
I also have a hotspot. Yeah, but I actually have
Ken, how you doing?
Comments, appreciate I got one.
Yeah, we just need a signature. Lance, we have a real estate discussion in this executive session. Is that okay? Sure.
And the other,
Yeah, we can.
if we had the major earthquakes you guys talking about, and coal, greenback, where are we gonna rent something? Where's the support for all the publications?
How are you?
You're on a,
I am.
you're on a mission.
It's okay. You don't want to pass around.
We should check that out, because it didn't surface.